What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the TCG Empire YouTube channel. Today we are taking a look at Lugia VSTAR. Now, normally we take a look at the single strike version on this channel, just because it's usually the more dominant version. But today we are going to be taking a look at the second place list from the Champions League Yokohama event. It is the same event that Miraidon got first place, which we looked at on Monday. This is the second place list, so this is going to be Colorless Lugia incorporated with 151 cards. So Lugia VSTAR, we know what this does: 220 Tempest Dive, discard a stadium. Summoning Star, you can put 2 colorless Pokemon that don't have a rule box into play. That's where you put the Archeops into play, just so that way you can accelerate energy. And then for the colorless forms, we are running Snorlax with the Unfazed Fat, meaning Lost Box is a little bit easier of a matchup, as well as hitting 180, meaning you can two-shot most things. And with that, we are also running the Therapeutic Energy, which means that we don't put ourselves to sleep when we do attack with Snorlax. We have the ability to use Wordier, which is a big bomb if need be. We can accelerate so many energy that Frontier Road activates when you put Wordier into the active. So you attach a Jet Energy, promote it, and then you can move all of the energy to it and hit 40 times the amount of energy. Also within this list, we are playing Luxray. It's just a good one prize combo paired with reversal energy that allows you to hit weakness, but it's also just a 180 bomb. 180 does KO Mew EX, so it means that if your opponent has Mew EX, they just took 2 prizes, they're in the lead. You can use the Luxray, bench it, and take 2 prizes back. And as I mentioned before, we are playing the 1 reversal. And then we're also playing Great Ball. This list actually plays Great Ball over Nest Ball, so it is something that's kind of unique that we haven't really seen before. We are playing 3 stadiums, 1 collapsed, 2 Mezagoza, and then we are playing the Pumpkaboo as the 4th stadium counter. You could drop this for another stadium in order to play 2 collapsed, 2 Mezagoza, but I feel like the 1 Pumpkaboo, 1 collapsed is better than the 2 collapsed, just because sometimes collapsed can hurt you, depending on how your board is set up. So as always, the deck list will be posted right here, so you guys have a full clean view, and the deck list will also be in the description so that you guys can copy and paste it into Pokemon Trading Card Game Live and play the deck for yourselves. Now, real quick, I do want to say, I know I always say it, but it's something that I need to do now. We do have memberships enabled on the channel, so check out the description down below if you guys want to become a member of the channel. Otherwise, with that being said, I want to thank you guys for everything. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for all the love on all of the videos. And if you guys do enjoy today's video, do me a favor, smash the like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications. Otherwise, with that being said, I will catch you guys in the gameplay later. Alrighty, guys, into the very first game with Colorless Lugia. Hopefully, we can have some good results go through, put us in a spot where, you know, the RNG blesses us as we can potentially set up the turn 2 Archeops. Most likely going to be going second here. So we do have access to read the wind if necessary, but I'm hoping that we don't have to do that. And looking at this hand, it's probably going to be a long game. I don't think that there's too much we're going to be able to do. I think it's going to be a lot more awkward than anything. We do have access to the research, but we do have to dump 2 energy, which I really don't want to do, but it's not the end of the world. And if we are playing against something like Mew, we do have access to Drapion, and we can actually close the game out with Wordier, but I'm just hoping that, you know, everything can work the way that we want it to. My opponent finishing their setup here. We're going to see exactly what it is we are playing against. So, and we are playing against Mew, so this means that we do gain the ability to use Drapion, and we can kind of start setting everything up from there. I think what we're going to do is, if we have the ability to, we'll get the Drapion down first to take 2 prizes, and then we have multiple bosses in order to take knockouts onto Genesect. So we should be okay. There's the other Mew coming down. And if we choose to actually V-guard a Drapion, my opponent actually has to have a couple more things in order to deal with it. So Definitely not the end of the world, but this start looking a little bit lackluster. We do have access to gift energy, the Lumineon. That way if my opponent KOs it, we're good. So it's going to come down to seeing what we can do as far as this setup goes. We don't play Nest Ball on the list, so we do have to hope that we can hard draw into the Drapion or hit it off of something like Great Ball. It's the only flaw I can see within running this deck. Otherwise, I think we're okay. So, let's see. So we do top deck the Capturing Aroma. This means that we can actually potentially take a knockout. I think what I'm going to do here, though, is use the Capturing Aroma. So we do hit Tails. Means that we can grab a basic. Unfortunately... Okay, never mind, our Drapion's right here. So I could take the knockout, take 2 prizes, and then in the back set up a Lugia, which I don't hate. I'm more likely to see the Lugia anyway, so I think what I'm going to do here is we'll go Drapion, and then we'll go... I mean, either way, something's getting discarded. And then we'll use the Professor's Research. And then we have the access to Lugia. We have Pumpkaboo if my opponent plays something like Path Down, so we can go into the Drapion. Hit for 380. Put 60 on the Lumineon. And just like that, we're actually looking like we're in a pretty good spot. My opponent will probably take a knockout here, which means that we do have Boss. We do have access to 1 Archeops, so we actually do have the ability to KO a Genesect next turn, putting ourselves down to 2 prizes, and then we can go from there. So my opponent retreating into Genesect. There's the Escape Rope. Happily bring up the Lumineon. They're just trying to thin cards at this point. There's the Elesa Sparkle. Thankfully, with how this board is right now, my opponent KOs the Lugia, Drapion's still active. We have Capturing Aroma. If my opponent decides to KO the Drapion, then Lugia is active, so it's not looking too bad for us. So my opponent going for the switch, just trying to get rid of as many cards as possible. There's the Choice Belt onto Meloetta. There's the Cramomatic. My opponent can possibly find 1 more card. And they do hit heads, so they can find another card. And they did play the Elesa Sparkle, so we do have the ability to actually swing with Drapion next turn. And this means that we're going to be in a very good position. I think what we do is just boss the Drapion. Or boss the Mew. Take 3 prizes. That way, regardless of what my opponent brings up, we can KO with the Lugia. So I don't hate it. And we have access to the Pumpkaboo as well. So I'll use the Capturing Aroma first. I don't think there's going to be too much I need to find. We do hit heads, which means that we can find the Lugia VSTAR. Lugia VSTAR can evolve. And then we can actually, just so my opponent doesn't potentially find a way to KO the Drapion, which I don't think they will. Let's see. I don't think it really matters. I think what we'll do is go Pumpkaboo, get rid of the path, and then we can use the Summoning Star, grab the one of Archeops, and then we can use the Primal Turbo. This will allow us to grab a Gift Energy as well as a Jet. Can attach to the Lugia just to kind of set up for the following turn. Can play the Boss's Orders, bringing up the Mew, and we can hit for 360. And now, regardless of what my opponent brings up, we're in a good position. We will be able to KO it regardless with Lugia. Even though Lugia is doing -20 thanks to this Oricorio, we gain the ability to hit for 200, and Genesect only has 190 HP, so we are in a very good spot here. There's no momentum that we're probably going to lose. My opponent could Iono, but again, we have the ability to search with the Archeops. We just need 1 energy. And that's pretty much it. My opponent could potentially boss stall the Pumpkaboo, but we do have Jet Energy. And we can just search out a double turbo and just swing with Drapion. So not too much that my opponent can do here. I'm pretty sure we are in the checkmate position. My opponent has gone through a 2-2 line of Mew. There's the Fusion Energies. There's the Power Tablets. So they are hitting 714 plus 6, 200 damage, which is quite a lot of damage. They need 1 more power modifier if they do want to KO the Drapion. And there's the Forest Seal Stone, which can get them it. But again, there's not too much that my opponent's going to be able to do. There's the Elasis Sparkle also, which means that they have a supporter that they used already. And there's the Ultra Ball. Getting rid of double battle VIP pass, grabbing another Genesect. And I think what we'll do next turn is just go for the knockout straight on Meloetta. Or if we want to have some fun with it, we can actually go for a knockout on the Genesect, but I don't think my opponent's going to be able to do too much here. And they are down 2 power tablets. There is the 3rd coming up, hopefully for my opponent to KO the Drapion. If not, then there's not too much that they can do. Fusion Strike System again for 2. My opponent's just trying to crawl their way out of this. Getting a 4th Genesect. There's the Lost City. Fusion Strike System drawing them 3. And they do need 1 more power modifier to one-shot us. Otherwise, they're going to be 10 damage short. And there's the Melodious Echo for 200. And what we can do here is just hit for 360, take our last prize card. We'll put these 60 on ourselves just to knock ourselves out. My opponent getting a prize card, and then we'll finally be able to take our very last prize card. My opponent's probably unsure of what happened, but all is well. My opponent taking 2 prizes, and then we take our very last one. And from there, we are able to win the game. So that was kind of a quick game. We did set up the Lugia, but it was really the showcase and power of Drapion putting in the work. So that was game number 1. Let's hop into another and see if we can do the same exact thing, except this time, pull off more Archeops. Alrighty, guys, getting into the second game here. Hopefully we are able to set up 2 Archeops and kind of showcase the deck. Lugia is one of those decks that's super hit or miss, though. Like, I feel like most of the time you get set up how you want to, but a short but good amount of times you also, deal with the issues of running into no turn 2. But looking at this hand, we're in a pretty good spot, because if we hit heads on Mezagoza this turn, or next turn I should say, we do gain the ability to actually set up, and we are playing against something. So there's Giovanni's Charisma. That could be a little bit annoying, as my opponent can accelerate energy but also get rid of energy on our board. So that will be something to keep in mind. And I'm pretty sure we're playing against Zoroark Box, so gonna have to see exactly what we can do. We do have access to Read the Wind, so we can use the Mezagoza. Hopefully it heads, Read the Wind, a Archeops. And then next turn, use the Mezagoza, see 3 more cards, 4 with the draw, 5 for the draw for next turn. So we should be okay. We have access to bosses' orders as well. So, and my opponent having the Aerodactyl with the Devolution Ray. There's Ting Lu. I'm not too sure what my opponent has going on here, but definitely is something that can be a little bit tricky. So what we'll do is use the Mezagoza, hopefully hit heads, and we hit tails, which is unfortunate, but it's not the end of the world. We'll just have to use the Read the Wind right now, hopefully can draw us, you know, a couple more cards. So drawing us 3. We do get Archeops, we get Mew, we get double turbo, jet energy. So we do have the ability to evolve next turn. And then perhaps we can hit heads off of the Mesagoza and Burnett. So it's going to be something to keep in mind. My opponent hits tails as well on the Mesagoza. I'm not sure why my opponent's playing Ting Lu. I understand it, but I don't think that there's going to be too much that Ting Lu can do for this matchup. My opponent does have the ability to, you know, devolve our active, but if we're basics, there's not very much that my opponent can do. So there's the Phantom Transformation. Going to go into the Aerodactyl. I'm not too sure what Aerodactyl is going to do for them. If we do get the Lugia out next turn, we do have the ability to evolve. So there's the double turbo. There is the Gita. So my opponent isn't going to be able to attack, which I don't think they realize. And then they're just going to have a lone Ting Lu. So, but that's fine. And we actually top deck the Luminion, which means that that's one less card that we have to find. So what we can do here is evolve. We can go for the Luminion, use that luminous sign, grab the Burnett. Burnett will allow us to get rid of the 2 Archeops, and we did actually have one prized, which is important to keep in mind. And we can use the Summoning Star. Summoning Star will allow us to grab both of the Archeops. And we'll use the Mesagoza right now. See what we get. We hit tails. Next turn, if we do get the Wordier, then we do have the ability to actually power it up. So what we'll do is go Lugia here. Go Primal Turbo. And this will allow us to grab... I think we'll grab the Reversal, just so that way we can attach it. It's going to provide a colorless, which means that there's not too much that my opponent's going to be able to do. And then we can use Tempest Dive. I'll leave the Mesagoza in play, just because if we do hit heads, we do have the ability to potentially boss his orders around, but we can grab the Wordier, as well as Accelerate Energy. Now my opponent is going to be able to use Land Scoop on the Archeops, which is something to keep in mind, but it's not going to be too detrimental. My opponent hits tails as well. I don't think anyone has hit heads on this Mesagoza yet. And there's the Iono. Iono, a little bit unfortunate as it does put the bosses to the bottom, but we do play 4, so. And there, speaking of playing 4, there's the other one. There's the Koraidon. Attaching to the Ting Lu. There's the 120 Archeops with 20. And we still have access to the other Archeops. So let's see. So the first thing we'll do is use the Mesagoza. And we do hit heads, which is fantastic. So this means that we can grab the Wordier. Wordier does 40x. And so that would mean we would need 6 energy. I'll grab the Wordier just to be safe. I don't think I'm going to fully need it right now, but let's see. And Wordier is weak to the Ting Lu, so I think what I have to do here is just 2-shot. Or we could boss up the Koraidon, potentially take a knockout. I'm probably overthinking it though. Not the end of the world. We'll use the other Capturing Aroma, so we hit tails, which means we can grab an evolution Pokemon, or sorry, a basic. So we can grab the Mew. And what we'll do from here is we'll just use the Tempest Dive. I'll get rid of the Mesagoza now since I do have another one in hand, but I also have the Wordier. And my opponent isn't going to be able to KO the Lugia right now. So this means that we do have the ability to KO next turn, and then potentially go wordier into a couple more prizes. So we'll probably go 2 into 1 into 2. That way my opponent can't risk using the Zoroark and using that Twilight Inspiration. And there's the Iono once again. Iono, an annoying card, but it's not the end of the world. And we do get Ultra Ball in case we don't hit heads to search out another Lugia. That's good. I don't think that there's too much that my opponent's going to be able to do. Let's see, Zoroark. Yeah, it has to go into a stage 1, so they can't go into another Tinglu, because Tinglu is a basic, so. And there is the Painful Spoons. What I'll probably do here is use the Capturing Aroma and go into this Lugia V, or Lugia VSTAR, just so that way the Koraidon can't one-shot it, and then we can actually potentially one-shot the Koraidon after the fact, so. There's 20 on the other Archeops. Let's see. There's not too much that I can do, so I'm just going to use the Capturing Aroma right now. We do hit tails, meaning we have to grab a basic once again. So this means that we'll grab the Wordier. And then my opponent isn't going to be able to power anything up in one turn. My opponent could use the Aerodactyl next turn, but they do give us the Lugia back. So I don't hate the idea of that. So what we'll do is just Tempest Dive. And we will discard the Stadium. And my opponent can't use the Alakazam either to actually move damage and move enough to KO the Lugia. So we're in a good spot. Tinglu, definitely an awkward card to play around, but it's definitely not, you know, the best card for my opponents to run. And we don't have any energy discarded yet. We still have access to quite a bit, so there's the Raihan. So my opponent could Raihan an energy, attach, retreat. But they have to have another energy or a Zoroark in their hand. They could devolve the Lugia, as mentioned before, but it does give us access to the other Lugia, which means that we can just take a knockout on that. They'll promote Koraidon, and then we can go into the Wordier. And then Wordier can just kind of blow up the board from there. So Colorless Lugia doing its thing. The crazy thing is the fact that if my opponent didn't have the Bravery Charm, they'd be at 230, and we could actually hit 220 with copying Mew's attack. So my opponent just goes for the rear kick, which is interesting. Well, in that case, we'll just promote the Lugia anyways. And we do get Jet, which is what we needed. So, and we have the Jet availability. And Lugia is what we'll grab. We will use Ultra Ball, getting rid of the Lugia as well as the Snorlax. We'll grab the Lugia VSTAR. We'll bench the Lugia VSTAR. Or sorry, evolve into it. Then we'll go Archeops. Archeops can grab the... we'll grab Gift Energy as well as Therapeutic. Attach there. And then we can bench the Wordier now, just so that way we have it. And we can just attach the energies to it. Meaning now my opponent's in a really awkward spot. They could promote, you know, something like a Zorua, but I don't think it's going to do too much. And we still have a Lumineon in the deck as well, meaning that we could potentially Great Ball into a Lumineon. My opponent going for the Ultra Ball. Being at 4 prizes too, there's not too much that they can do. With this Slowbro, they can't use the Twilight Inspiration in order to take 2 prizes and win the game. They can take 2 prizes and be at 2 prizes. So there's the Starmie. Just being able to put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. And that is a 151 card. So my opponent going into the Photon Transformation. They're going into the Starmie. They will be able to put 2 damage counters and then discard it, but then they have to promote something. And I don't think that there's too much that they're going to be able to do. There's the Mystery Comet. Putting 20 onto the Wordier. Promoting the Radiant Alakazam, and now all it comes down to is honestly just finding a boss's orders. We haven't used any. There should be 4 in the deck. If not, there's 2 in the deck. We have access to Minion. There is the Gita. So my opponent has no hand now. So even if we take the prize here, my opponent isn't going to be able to win next turn. So if worst comes to worst, we're okay. And my opponent concedes anyways, most likely realizing that. So that was basically the gist of Colorless Lugia. It's pretty much the same as regular Lugia. You just have different attackers, so that way you have the ability to kind of hit differently. You have 1 prize attackers, 2 prize attackers, but I still think the single strike version is better. But with that being said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video. If you did enjoy it, do me a favor, smash the like button, subscribe, turn on post notifications. Otherwise, I will catch you guys in tomorrow's video. Later.